Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged. And the state legislature has been debating a plan designed to make sure the Diamondbacks stay at Chase Field. And while everyone agrees that they want the team to stay, not everyone is on board with the legislature's plan. And here to talk about that, Phoenix City Councilman Jim Waring. I want to thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. I appreciate it.
And we're bringing you on today because the mayor had outlined some serious concerns. She had sent a letter out and urging the governor to veto this bill if it gets to her desk, or oppose this bill, or make some changes to this bill. She estimates it's gonna cost maybe twice as much than what the bill is initially estimated to at this point. Do you share these concerns? And if you looked at the bill, is this a good deal for the city?
So I will say this: I'm not the spokesman for the mayor.
I know.
While we work together and we work to try to better Phoenix, obviously she's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, so we don't always agree on everything.
Yeah.
One thing though, and I'm only using her public statements, she said she is not in favor of spending money on stadiums. I voted against the Suns spending by the city 6-7 years ago. When she was running, she was a candidate. I said, I don't feel like we should be spending money on this. I will say, though, this is different. This is not a city-owned facility. This is at the legislature. It's not something that the city council is voting on. Baseball is a little different. It's a much bigger facility. It has bigger crowds. It draws a lot more people. For Phoenix, it draws people downtown in the summer when maybe they otherwise wouldn't be coming down. I'm not one of those who said you got to have a vibrant downtown. But once you build light rail, and once you build the Sun Stadium, and once you spend a lot of money on infrastructure downtown, having a big gaping hole downtown is a big deal. That stadium is a big structure, so nobody wants the Diamondbacks to leave. I think at this point, as a pragmatist, it would be great if they could work out a deal at the legislature that made sense for everybody. So while I have concerns just because I would never vote to build a stadium from scratch in the first place, this is a stadium that's already here. I'm anti-light rail. I think that's kind of a boondoggle that doesn't deliver much as promises, and it's really expensive. But it's built, and now having it not be used by anybody because it goes by an empty lot doesn't make a lot of sense.
Would you like to see some changes to the bill? Because one of the big concerns with the mayor is how much money that would be diverted away from city resources, so it'd make it harder for the city to pay for essential services like police, fire, and even other services, library services, parks, these kinds of things.
Well, and that's why I was concerned about the Suns Stadium. Like for the Suns Stadium, I wasn't anti-Suns. It was a different owner then, so this isn't saying anything about the current Suns ownership or the team or anything else. I'm a fan. I want them to be successful. They bring a lot to the city. But Robert Sarver was the owner then, and frankly, I had an excellent working relationship with him. He was a perfect gentleman dealing with them, even though I voted no on his ultimate successful stadium refurbishment. But really what happened is he turned right around and sold it. All that really did was make money for Robert Sarver. It increased the value of the team. In this case, though, this is out of our hands. This is at the legislature. They're going to work out a deal, and Governor Hobbs is a Democrat, so the mayor would have a lot more influence with her than certainly I would ever expect to have. She has the ultimate authority. You make a good point. This is the legislature deciding how the city is going to spend its money. With the Suns, it was solely our responsibility, and I could not justify at a time we're short police officers and so forth, saying we're going to do the stadium instead of doing some other things we could do with that money. I didn't feel like I could make that sale to the voters. Ultimately, I hope this works out. There are two excellent legislators working on it. Jeff Wenninger, the sponsor of the bill, I know him well. He is a competent, smart, savvy legislator. He's been around for a long time, and I've worked with him in the past. And J.D. Mesnard, I've heard, to your point, is potentially proposing some amendments. So if that happens, it would be great if they could work something out. But it's a little bit out of our hands at this point.
Well, and it's one of the things you bring a unique perspective to all of this, because back in the day, you used to be a state senator. Back when I was an old print reporter covering you then, so you have a different perspective on these kinds of things. And one of the things is maybe capping the money that is redirected. Are you working the phones? Are you calling people, say, yes, we'd like to see this money capped somehow, and maybe some more guarantees that the Diamondbacks are going to stay?
Yeah. So
because although you're not voting on this, you do have the power to lobby for this or make some phone calls.
Yes. Very little of that has been going on from from my office. I have talked to Jeff Wenninger. We had one conversation. Did talk to him and put him together with the mayor. I think they had hopefully good discussions, get her perspective. I always think that's important. I think that ultimately, though, I've been a legislator, as you said. They're going to decide what they decide. The whole question is, does Katie Hobbs sign the bill that ultimately gets to her? She's indicated she will. Does the mayor's letter influence that? I can probably send all the letters I like. I worked with Governor Hobbs when she was working on domestic violence shelters and so forth when I was in the legislature, and she was an activist. I like her, I know her personally, but I would expect the mayor of Phoenix would have a lot more impact on her than I ever would as a has-been former legislator who's now a backbencher on the city council. That just wouldn't be realistic. So we'll see what happens. If she takes the letter seriously, analyzes it, maybe she puts pressure on the Diamondbacks, I don't know. But I think ultimately everybody realizes it would be a disaster if the Diamondbacks leave. There are some cautionary tales on the other side too. We need the Diamondbacks, but the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays are playing in minor league stadiums this year because they didn't have stadium deals. Oakland, it'll be 3 years. I can't remember what city they're playing in. Oakland has been an extremely successful baseball franchise. In my lifetime, they went to 6 World Series, lots of division titles, and yet they're playing in a minor league stadium for 3 seasons. Tampa has been one of the more successful teams of the last 17 years. They're in a minor league stadium as well. I don't know for how long. I mean, they don't have any deal.
Yeah, clearly, you're also a baseball fan,
yes,
just
I am
like
a baseball
I am. So
fan.
everybody here at the table, just make clear, we're all baseball fans. We're not like just poking, just asking questions about this for no other reason. But I think a lot of people do want to see the Diamondbacks stay there in downtown. However, I do got to ask. I mean, what is the reception from the constituents in your district in Phoenix, which is a northern Phoenix district, when you tax dollars may be diverted away from the city's services to fund these maintenance issues and whatnot at the stadium. At the same time, you just, as a council, not you, just voted to raise the sales tax.
So surprisingly little feedback. I had to think if I even had one email about the Diamondbacks from just a citizen who's not somehow working on the project. The same thing with the Coyotes. They were potentially talking about putting that in the district I represent, District 2, along Scottsdale Road. I don't know that there's a huge appetite for this. I think if you took it to the ballot, it would be an issue. The Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know what team could be more popular with its fan base at this point with the Super Bowls that they've had, and they were pretty embedded in their community to begin with. Last year, they put something on the ballot along with the Kansas City Royals, who have had some success, and it failed miserably. If they couldn't get a stadium deal passed with their voters, I have to believe this probably wouldn't poll well either. But I haven't been getting feedback saying that. The Sun Stadium, I think, polled 80% against building a new stadium.
And why did you vote against this sales tax?
Well, so we wouldn't have been in that circumstance in the first place. Again, Governor Hobbs signed a bill that effectively cut revenues to the city. So a Democrat governor listened to the arguments, presumably from...
You're talking about the rental tax bill.
Yes, correct.
But there's also the Doug Ducey Republican governor, the flat tax bill.
True, but the rental tax, I think, really drove a lot of this train. Governor Hobbs signed the bill. She obviously heard the arguments and felt either it wouldn't hurt the cities as much as they were saying, or she didn't care. One of those two and you're saying that I should be panic-stricken. Now, I will say the city staff, Jeff Barton and his staff, Ed Zerker before him, both city managers, they've done a great job of managing our money. City expenditures, it'll shock you, have gone up almost a negligible amount in the about 17 years since the Great Recession. So when you look at it, per capita spending, inflation adjusted, I think it's gone up $4 a citizen. So we've done a good job managing our money. We have fewer employees than we had back then. But ultimately, some of the things we spent money on, the Sun Stadium, light rail, the Office of Transparency, that doesn't make people safer. It doesn't move people around. I had concerns within the acceptable levels of spending, what we were spending money on, and I did vote no.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it right there. Jim Waring, Phoenix Councilman Jim Waring, thanks for stopping by here.
Dennis,
and still ahead, who's in, who's out, and who has the best chance to replace longtime Congressman Raul Grijalva? We'll talk to a reporter who's been tracking it all when Politics Unplugged continues. Welcome back to Politics Unplugged. Arizona Congressman Raul Grijalva passed away earlier this month from complications in his cancer treatment. That leaves a void in Grijalva's 7th district with some high-profile candidates looking to replace him. Here to talk about that, reporter Laura Gómez of the Arizona Republic. Thank you very much for being here. And I want to start here. You got an interesting piece that just was published the other day. It started with, some Republicans actually praising the former congressman. It was kind of nice to read and kind of nice to see in this era.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Dennis. But yeah, what stood out to me from those conversations is that I think Raul Grijalva was really a larger-than-life figure. Of course, had this big personality, charismatic, funny guy. His colleague David Schweikert described him as a funny curmudgeon, but also with quite the life story. As son of a migrant worker, and just climbed his way up from local office at the Pima County level all the way up to then representing Arizona in Congress for more than 2 decades.
Yeah, and I think we made the point last week that he seems to be kind of one of those politicians that is a rarer breed now, because his political career started in the early 1970s. He went to school board, the county board, the Congress, kind of worked his way up instead of some of the folks you see now going to Congress, the Senate, or the House, just coming out of nowhere thinking, hey, I can do this job.
I think that's a great point, and I think, he never lost sight of his core issues. That's another thing. He really stayed laser focused around environmental issues, labor, indigenous issues. Also, I will say a left-leaning foreign policy that distinguished himself even from other progressives on Capitol Hill. And to me, that was reflected, in the outpouring of support that we've seen from his loyal base of Grijalvistas, as they call themselves, his progressive base of supporters. Yeah.
And he always had one of the better, I thought, like kind of logos for his campaigns was just the big mustache.
Yes.
And I was kind of enjoyed that. But let's move on now. Let's talk about the race. Same big names we're hearing out there. It's Daniel Hernandez, former state lawmaker, Abelita Grijalva, the daughter of Raul Grijalva, and of course, Adrian Fontes. Adrian Fontes actually sent a memo out to his staff this past week. What did it say?
It said prepare for a vacancy, essentially. He has said that he's seriously considering a candidacy. I know I just want to note right up front here, Dennis, that it's a sensitive thing for a congressman to pass away. It's a sensitive subject. As we are speaking right now, his funeral is scheduled for next week. He's not yet in the ground. So I think the conversation around this race is not fully mature. But yeah, so far we've heard Fontes, one big name. He's been building his national image and connections for quite some time, and now seems like, maybe he'll throw his hat in the ring for Congress. Yeah,
and I think everybody is kind of waiting for that to try to give the family a little bit of time and whatnot. But, political world just kind of continues to move on.
Oh, yes.
But a lot of folks will too have talked a little bit about how Fontes has been a Phoenix guy now. He may have grew up in southern Arizona, but he's been a Phoenix guy for a long time. Is that an issue? And if it is, how big of an issue is it down south? Because we do know here in the Valley, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference with voters because Abe Hamadeh, Congressman Hamadeh, wasn't living in the district when he was elected and may still not be living in the district as far as I know.
Right, and that's the case for several members of Arizona's congressional delegation, not as unlikely as you might think that they don't live in the district. But, to me, that might bear more on what kind of support they can mobilize in a campaign like this. A lot of it in a primary comes down to things like door knocking, mobilizing grassroots groups. Based on what I am hearing, many of the groups that loyally backed Raul Grijalva for decades are expected to stick with his daughter, as his successor. On the other hand, someone like Daniel Hernandez, who you mentioned earlier, I've been hearing even some out-of-state interest from donors, particularly on the issue of Israel. That's a topic that has come up in other Democratic primaries where, to me, the candidates are going to be competing for a set of donors, for resources, for manpower to knock doors on the ground, and that's where I see issues like Fontes' residency potentially coming into play.
Yeah, and you would think, Mr. Grijalva had been battling cancer for well over a year, I believe it was announced and whatnot. Any indication that he was setting things up maybe for his daughter for when the time came? Because this was either going to come or he was going to step down.
Yeah, I'm personally not all that familiar with those behind closed doors conversations. I have to imagine, that's got to be a really personal connection, a father to daughter. Although I think we should keep in mind, Grijalva had told us that he was going to step down, that this was going to be his final term in Congress. So I have to imagine that a lot of the candidates were already laying the groundwork, if not for the special election, then certainly for a year down the line in 2026 when this race, the seat would have been competitive anyway.
Yeah, any other candidates out there waiting in the wings? I know, Charlene Fernandez, former minority leader at the State House, I've had conversations with her, and she told me last week that she hadn't ruled it out. Maybe, she may have changed her mind since then, but have you heard of anybody else?
Yeah, there are a couple of names circulating. I think, to me, the bottom line right now is that this seat has not been competitive in decades. And it's been such a long time since we've really seen a truly competitive primary. And so, I might sidestep your question a little bit just to say that it's unpredictable. I think even more so than the other races that I've covered in Arizona politics. A lot of moving parts here. Hard to know, where the chips will fall. Yeah, and that election on the summer, the primary election will be July 15th. That's basically going to decide this race because this is a district that leans very heavily Democrat. So going to end it right there. Thank you so much for dropping by here and giving us the latest on that. And I'll be bringing in our panel to talk about all of this week's major headlines, including some key votes ahead in the state legislature. That's next on Politics Unplugged. Welcome back to Politics Unplugged. Governor Katie Hobbs said she supported a controversial bill signed into law by President Trump this year. But will she sign Arizona's version of the Laken-Riley Act? Here to talk about that, here's our panel, Republican consultant Barrett Marson and Democratic consultant Roy Herrera. Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, this new bill, Senate Bill 1610, it's a John Kavanaugh bill, would basically have local jails reporting, suspected undocumented migrants for lower-level crimes like shoplifting and burglary, theft, and report them to ICE to be checked out. Since the governor had said she supported the Laken-Riley Act, do you think she's boxed herself in? Will she sign this piece of legislation?
Well, there are some differences, important differences between Laken-Riley Act and this bill, primarily because Laken-Riley had to do with, having additional responsibilities and requirements of the Department of Homeland Security, the federal government. This is a bill that is going to require new things of local law enforcement. So the big question I think that she's going to have to wrestle with is the appropriate role of local law enforcement when it comes to immigration enforcement. I think she's indicated with Laken-Riley that she's concerned with immigration enforcement as a whole. But again, is it appropriate to have local law enforcement do that? And also, what are the budgetary implications of this? And I'm sure those are going to be conversations she's going to have with the counties.
Okay. Yeah. Look, some of our jails currently have agreement to what they're called 287Gs with ICE currently. So,
And they do interview almost everybody that comes into the jails, I believe.
Absolutely. Just as a regular course of booking someone in. Yeah. And so I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's going to be a huge impact on law enforcement, but it could actually have an impact on the illegal immigrant population here in Arizona.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more raw politics here. Let's talk a little bit about that the congressional race in District 7. You're a former print reporter, scribe for the Daily Star. You covered politics south of the Gila.
Absolutely.
What's your take on this race that's shaping up to replace
former
Congressman Grijalva?
It certainly is going to be interesting. As your previous guest noted, this seat, literally the only person to ever hold this seat was Raul Grijalva. So it's going to be a great race. Adelita does have certain advantages. So does Daniel Hernandez, if you ask me. One of the things that I learned when I worked at the Daily Star is they have a huge chip on their shoulder about being Tucson and about not being Phoenix. And so, Fontes from Nogales, sure, but he's been a Phoenician for a lot longer than anyone has ever known him down in Nogales. So I do think that is going to be a problem for him, being seen as a carpetbagger in a place that actually cares about that. The West Valley, people didn't care that Abe was from Scottsdale or Blake Masters was from Tucson.
Yeah, and being the Democrat here at the table, I mean, this primary is going to determine basically who wins that seat. How are Democrats looking at this race?
Well, it's going to be an interesting potential three-way race. I think one of the other big questions, in addition to just the nature of Tucson, is going to be who can raise the money, right? I mean, we're in a situation where at least two of the three candidates have never really had to do that before. There's going to be millions of dollars spent on this race from IEs as well as the candidates themselves. So who can raise that money? Who can put together sort of the best team in a very short time period, right?
A very short time period. But also, this is a safe Democratic seat. It really, in some ways, doesn't matter, right?
So what are going to be the issues?
It's going to make it hard to raise money because they're all three of them going to vote.
Well, it's not going to get,
similar.
and it's not going to get the kind of national attention and exposure because it is, a safe Democrat seat. But what are the issues down there that are going to divide these primary candidates?
Right now, I think the thing that's unifying and animating the Democratic Party is fighting against Donald Trump, right, and his accesses and the things that he's doing that Democrats view as unconstitutional. So, to me, the three candidates are each going to try to present their vision of how they're a fighter against Trump, and I think the one that does the best at that is probably going to win.
And who do you think can be the one that can voice that anger and be the fighter that Democrats want? Because we have seen some of this. I mean, we have seen, AOC this week with Bernie Sanders come to town, say that Democrats need better fighters. We've seen the anger now coming from the Democratic base from aimed at Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the U.S. Senate, because they feel he didn't stand up to Donald Trump and the administration strong enough.
Personally, I kind of think Adrian Fontes would fit that bill. He does like to fight. He does like to get in the arena and really mix it up. So I do believe that he is sort of that fighter. Will he catch on? I don't know. But he's the guy who will speak loudest and hardest going after Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's possible. Of course, Adelita Grijalva, being the congressman's daughter, I mean, the congressman is a legend, and
absolutely,
it's a big loss for the state of Arizona. But he was a fighter, right? And so, again, is his daughter going to be able to sort of carry on that legacy? That's certainly what she's going to be presenting.
All right, I want to get your thoughts too. As the Republican here at the table, Andy Biggs was having Congressman Andy Biggs was having a town hall, but they were checking party affiliation at the door. So he only represents Republicans and no Democrats live in his district?
Very few. But look, it was a private event. I also heard Biggs went to a wedding
why
about
bill it
3
as a town hall?
weeks ago. Would people be allowed at the wedding? It was a private event, and I think a private group who's sponsoring it, who's putting it on, gets to invite who they want to invite. And if that doesn't mean the liberal media like you folk,
oh boy.
Then I think it was perfectly fine. It wasn't a congressional town hall. It wasn't paid for by his office or anything like that. You had Jerry Sheridan and Warren Peterson there. I believe it was, quite frankly, it was much more like a campaign event. And these guys, these are three people who don't necessarily cater
campaign event. Yeah, I mean, is it a good look for someone who wants to be governor? I mean, he's put his name out there as somebody who might be running for the state's top job next year.
It is not a good look because ultimately you have to represent.
I don't agree that it's a good look.
Democrats and Republicans, and so this signifies that he's not very interested in talking to Democrats, certainly, but even independents, you have to be Republican to go in. I would compare it to the town halls that we saw this week with the two senators, Senator Kelly and Senator Gallego. There was no, litmus test. There was no party affiliation check at the door. They were out there actually talking to Arizonans of all political stripes, and I think that is the way to represent the state the best way.
And there's a lot of anger again with the Democrat base, and you heard some of that at that town hall with Senators Kelly and Gallego.
I will say, Senator Kelly is stepping up in the last 3-4 months as sort of leading the opposition here, at least in Arizona. But I see him on national TV all the time as well. He is really stepping up that fight. Taking a position that he
trading in this Tesla, getting a Yukon or whatever it was.
I think that you had a backbencher city councilman on earlier in this show.
He is not a backbencher, sir.
Well, it's self-described. Kelly was sort of in the back. Cinema got all the play right over his time, and I think he's really come out of his shell in the last just few months.
And he really has, and we'll end right here with this real quick, running out of time. Ruben Gallego and Carrie Lake had an interesting, weird interaction in D.C. Apparently, Carrie Lake's not over her loss yet.
Doesn't surprise me at all that she's not over her loss. Doesn't surprise me that she's rude and inappropriate and all of that. I think Senator Gallego handled it in the right way, and also I think in the best way, in reminding her that he won.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there. That's all the time we have. Be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged.